What lesson have we learned this week about public servants?
We learned that public servants, career dedicated professionals, have devoted their lives to representing the people of America and the Constitution. And when they see something that counters that oath that they took, they act on it. And Dr. Fiona Hill is probably one of the most amazing examples that I've seen, certainly in these hearings, but they've come one after another, and it's a stark contrast, Brian, between those professionals and the partisanship that we've seen, and the GOP members who simply are throwing out deflection, disinformation, and distraction because they simply don't have the facts that those professionals have on their side.
Kim Atkins is a journalist by trade and a lawyer in her spare time. So, Kim, I note this: 35 hours of testimony, 12 witnesses. As I said a minute ago, it's okay for us to say now the facts, the central facts of this story are not in dispute. But what has happened? How has this been advanced during the course of these hearings in the House, do you think?
Well, so far, the Democrats are sticking to the fact that all of these witnesses this week more or less have testified to the same thing, that there was this separate track of diplomacy that was being conducted by the likes of Rudy Giuliani and Sondland and Mulvaney and others that was separate from what these folks that we heard from were doing. They were practicing diplomacy in the normal realm, and that this separate track diverged from that and was focused on getting this political prize in the form of an announcement of an investigation into Trump's rival, and that the prize in exchange would have been either military aid and or the promise of a meeting in the White House. And they're saying that that is an abuse of the president's power, and they are trying to stay lockstep strongly behind that message. Some Democrats have expressed some concerns to me, saying that they wonder if that message is really landing with the American people. They're hoping that over the next week, as folks are talking to each other over their turkey dinners, that they do talk about this, that more support grows, that we've been seeing in the polls recently for the polls, and that a majority of Americans get behind the impeachment, get behind a vote that would lead to articles of impeachment. But as you said, Republicans have remained really strong and solid behind the president. So we'll have to see how those messages are landing on the ears of the American people.
Phil, you and I have talked many times on this broadcast about the president's love for the kind of dated and quaint phrase, central casting from old Hollywood. With that in mind, what do you think the White House truly makes of some of the testimony this week and the people giving it?
Well, the White House should be very concerned about the testimony that came out this week, and most especially Fiona Hill, who provided a fitting coda to 2 historic and extraordinary weeks of testimony. Her biography, which you got into a little bit at the top of the show at 11, is compelling and important. This is a woman who grew up in hardscrabble England, the daughter of a coal miner. There's an anecdote in a profile about her written in the New York Times the other day that at age 12, she was in school trying to take a test, and a boy lit her ponytail on fire, and she put her hand up, put out the fire, and kept taking her test. That's an example of her strength and fortitude, which America got to see in that hearing today. And so for witnesses like her, for Lieutenant Colonel Vindman, for some of the other public servants who've come forward and testified to what they saw and heard and witnessed in their jobs as it related to the foreign policy going on with Ukraine, for them to do so with the kind of credibility they carry and the careers that they have in their backgrounds is very troubling for the president, because they're not easily tarred. We've seen a scattershot strategy on the part of the Republicans on that committee to try to discredit some of those who've been testifying, to try to seize vulnerabilities and poke holes, but it has been rather inconsistent and has not, as you pointed out, done anything to change the reality that the facts are in alignment here.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me, or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.